Let's try this. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? What about now? Let's see. So many technical difficulties, my goodness. Hopefully this works. My. There we go. Yeah? We're here now? You can hear me? We're alive? Now it's echoing? What about this? Ah! Wow. You're beginning to understand why we were running so late in the first place. Hmm? Y'all are good sports. Excellent. Perfect. Okay. Should we start over? Should we start the stream over again? Wait 5 more minutes? All right. So, as I was saying, that you couldn't actually hear me for what I was saying, this is going to be mostly all of your Q&A, where we're just going to be answering all of the questions that you have about Blender and getting started and doing live model requests. So if you're on YouTube, there should be a pinned link at the top of the chat up there that shows you how to get to the chat that's over here. And that's on events.roblox.com. And there's a mod over there that's going to open up a Q&A section right now. Mod, please. Of submitting your requests of what you want to have talked about, of what you want to have answered, and it'll be great. So I'm going to introduce the guest here, who if you've seen a past stream, you know of him already. And he's going to kind of get the ball rolling of some general high-level things. And then after you all have voted on the Q&A of the answers that you want, we're going to go through and do them. And it's going to be great. Okay, so without further ado, please welcome everybody, SCHLEEMPH. Hey, SCHLEEMPH. Welcome back. Oh, man. After all the technical difficulties. Oh, and I'm behind the chair. The technical... Hey, you know, at least your mouth is working, right? At least your mouth is working. Perfect. Let's see if I can get him up, come out from behind the chair here. Let's see. Anyway, so while I'm figuring out how to get behind the chair, why don't you start talking about the ins and outs of Blender, just the high-level beginning stuff, as we start getting requests in. I see you've started a toilet already, which is very fun. Uh-oh. Adam, guess what? They can't hear you. Hold on. Hold. Say something now.
New challenges every day.
Now? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Waiting for confirmation. Okay. Excellent. I think you're good to go.
Okay. All right, well, I'll pick up where I was. Yeah, just hello, audience, if you're just now here.
Hello, audience. I'm going to recalibrate this virtual body here. Don't mind me. Please, SCHLEEMPH, take it away. So, actually, yeah. So, just high-level Blender. Get started. Started with the toilet. Go.
High-level idea. We're just going to look at this toilet here to get us started in Blender. And basically, the first things you're going to want to know how to do is how to move things around. So, most of that is done with your mouse. The middle mouse wheel, if you scroll it up and down, that zooms you in and out. If you press down on the middle mouse wheel, it kind of rotates around things. And if you hold shift in middle mouse wheel, it grabs the scene and pans it around. So that's basically your kind of 3 primary ways to move around in the viewport and see the different sides of your mesh. That's zoom wheel in and out. Hold down the middle mouse to orbit or rotate around objects. And hold shift and middle mouse to pan. But there's one other thing that I do like to use quite often, and that's if you have something selected and you press the period on the number pad, it'll kind of focus your camera in on whatever you have selected. Let's say we were doing some stuff over here and messing around, and I go over and I select toilet and I press the period on the number pad.
Number pad, yes.
Puts me right over to look at it. So very convenient.
Perfect. So, SCHLEEMPH, when you say number pad, for Blender specifically, it's not the same if the number's up on the top, right? It needs to be specifically the number pad off to the side.
That's exactly right. And it just as a recommendation, it's strongly recommended not to change any of the hotkeys in Blender. Just keep them as they are by default. Because if you start changing around too much of them, a lot of the plugins stop working because they rely on the functionality of that. I would definitely recommend people keep it as default if you can.
Perfect.
A couple other like simple things that I think would help anyone get started is just the concept of like selecting an object is done with left clicking, and then you can go into from object mode, which lets you select different things, and then you can press tab to go into edit mode, which lets you kind of select the polygons and do things to them. Those are the kind of major principles there.
All right, SCHLEEMPH, due to the unfortunate reality of being virtual avatars on the internet, we have already shaved off 13 minutes of our precious time together.
Better hustle.
So we're gonna start with the Q&A questions. The first question that we have right now is more of it's not a demonstration, but it's a technical question. And the technical question is, does importing a Roblox union into Blender and then exporting really optimize the union? Or how would you kind of deal with that importing union to Blender flow?
That's a pretty good question. It's not something I've done very often, but my understanding is that if you were to export a union part out of Studio, it would give you a .obj file, which is basically a type of a 3D file, basically.
Okay.
And it's going to give it to you entirely in triangles. It's going to be horribly triangulated in probably just a very procedural way. I don't know if it optimizes it for you or not. I think that you would have to do that by hand.
Okay, got it.
And do that by stitching together vertices and retopologizing that mesh to the way that you would like it to be. Then when you bring it back out of Blender and back into Studio, you wouldn't be working with a union any longer. You would mesh or mesh part at that point.
Okay. So actually, it's funny you mentioned topology because we have a next question that also, since we're showing off the tech, chat, you want to see something cool? Look at this. It's a question mark. The question. The question is topology really that important, SCHLEEMPH? You know, a lot of Blender artists are complaining, maybe not complaining, but there's a lot of emphasis on get your topology right, make your poly count this, poly count that, optimize what you're making. How much really does it matter with what you're trying to actually make?
It matters in two ways. Yeah, the two most important things that you're going to want to keep in mind about topology of your mesh is that you have a nice even distribution of triangles and polygons. For example, the underside of our toilet lid is pretty nicely segmented, but this is not very optimized. Like something to keep in mind would be to avoid really long, skinny triangles like these, because they triangulate very poorly inside Studio, and you can get some really kind of ugly artifacts. You might see things like this, where you get like pinches and really long tries like that. So having more even distribution of meshes like this usually tends to look a lot better.
Got it.
So that's one thing. The other thing about topology is that you're going to be able to basically control how many polygons you are using on a mesh. Of course, there's a limit of 10,000.
So, SCHLEEMPH, question for you. So let's start. So we have a toilet here, right? A lot of these are technical questions. Let's start actually modeling something else while we wait for a request to come in. And then we can try to showcase the things that we're talking about. So the poly count, for those of you who aren't familiar with Blender, poly count just means how dense a mesh is, an object is, and how complex it is typically. So these are like optimization questions for topology, which hasn't really been covered because this is like an intro to Blender. But the next question is, how do I make round corners on objects? So let's start with making something that has round corners, and then we can try to
Okay.
showcase some technical things while actually modeling itself.
Okay, sure. I'll make a cube really fast by pressing Shift A and highlighting Mesh and then choosing Cube. That's going to put a cube into the world. And right here, you can see that appear in my collection. And here's some of its properties over on the other side here. But mostly what we want to focus on today is just, let's look at the cube and do some modeling. You see in the top left-hand corner here, I show some statistics, right? I just toggled that on in the overlays panel here.
Mm-hmm.
I can turn it on and off. I recommend having this on so that you can see how many fit polygons, triangles, edges, and vertices. This is just a good way to keep an eye on how many polygons you're
Got it.
get into 3D modeling. Something to keep in mind. Making a flat edge rounded, we're going to do that by selecting our cube with left click, pressing tab to go into edit mode, pressing 2 to go into edge select mode, and select any edge. We'll go ahead and just select these 3 edges right here and make them rounder using the bevel operation.
Ah, okay. So to make rounded corners, use bevel.
Correct.
And how do you get to bevel real quick? Like TLDR, bevel, rounded corners.
There's 2 ways. You can right click in the viewport and get this menu here and just look for bevel. Bevel edges right here. Of course, you see this grayed out text. It says Control B. Press escape to remove this menu. I can also just press Control B and that activates bevel.
Okay.
Now, while bevel's active, I can just slide the mouse back and forth and it'll give you a little bit of beveling or a lot of bit of beveling. We're going to go kind of somewhere in between. We'll stop right there. And when I left click again, it executes and leaves it.
Got it. So you select the edge that you want to bevel or make rounded, and then it becomes round.
Exactly. Now, by default, after you make that click to commit that you have chosen how much beveling you want to add, in the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to get this little context menu that you can fly open by clicking on the arrow. And this is going to give you some more sub-options. You can choose how many edges you want it to have. By default, it's going to be 1. It was showing like 6 a moment ago. That's because I was modeling earlier. Changed it to 6. But you can put this number as high as you want it and just get really, really, really smooth mesh. I wouldn't recommend it, though, because this gets just way too much geometry. And we want to keep this as low as possible, still letting it look round. Let's go about 3. So you see we're adding 1, 2, 3 faces into the bevel. And it naturally sort of like intersects this really nicely here as well.
Perfect. Okay. Can we get a rubber ducky in the toilet?
A rubber ducky in the toilet?
A rubber ducky in the toilet.
Let's go.
That's what they want.
All right. Okay, let's do it. Shift A. Let's make another cube. I'm going to press G to grab and press Z to move it up. Oops, excuse me. G, Z. Oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Hey, it's good to see I'm not the only one struggling with technology today. As an added question, could you talk out loud as you're making the rubber ducky, just in your mind how you would view topology as you're making it, or if you're not, like Absolutely. I'm not worried about topology at this point for this reasons, so on and so forth, because that seems to have been a theme so far.
Okay, well, step 1 is I'm going to go over to my browser screen and I'm just going to look up rubber ducky. I'd recommend every modeler just use reference. That's the first thing you need to do because that's going to help guide your vision. Unless you're just pulling everything straight out of your imagination, it's very helpful to have some reference. I have a rubber ducky on my other screen.
So references
are
good.
At it. Oh, absolutely.
Always. Okay. So you don't have to be precious about it. Just use a reference.
Nope. Yeah, it's great for people if they don't need it. That's wonderful, but most artists do. And there's nothing wrong with using reference. In fact, I've been modeling for 16 years and I still use it every day.
Awesome.
The thing I keep in mind is I want to turn this cube basically into the shape of a rubber ducky, and I'm thinking big to small. Now, I know our rubber ducky has kind of a long bottom shape, so I'll go into edit mode, and I'll press 3 to go into face mode. And I'm just going to select this front face. And I'm going to press G, and then middle mouse while I drag forward. And you see that red line that appeared. That means I'm locked to the x-axis. That's also reflected here in the top right corner. You see how the red x-axis is shown? You can press all the different directions to lock it to different axes by pressing middle mouse and dragging in that direction. See, I can change that at any time. So I'm changing it to Z. And if I want to go to X, I can just hold middle mouse and drag an X, and it locks it to that one.
Got it.
That's one thing to keep in mind.
Okay.
So I'm going to make the long base first.
Okay. Hey, the next question actually is how do you make something smooth? Which this will be a rubber ducky, so it seems that should be something that you would have to show off anyway.
You know what? I will. Let me make a couple more cuts here, and then I can show a very clear example of how.
Got it. Now, when you say cuts, what exactly do you mean by cuts?
Okay, so we started with a cube,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And the cube has 6 polygons or 6 faces, one on each side,
Sure.
6-sided cube.
Okay.
But it doesn't have any geometry inside. Where if we look at the toilet, it's got lots of different pieces of geometry cutting through it. And that's
Mhm.
basically what I'm referring to as cuts, or new polygons inserted into the body of the mesh.
Got it.
We're going to add some more cuts or loops into this mesh.
Ah,
We
and
do that by pressing.
Sorry, no, I'm just
Go ahead,
I'm
please.
just thinking because it's kind of complicated. But the more cuts you
yes.
make, the more details you can have from it. It's like setting yourself up to be able to do more and make it more complex and add more information.
Exactly. So, like, I want to have the middle of the bottom of the duck body be kind of fat, and I want the tail to be skinnier,
Okay.
and I want the front chest to be a little skinnier too.
Okay.
So I can press Control R, and that makes this yellow line appear.
Mhm.
That's the loop, cut, and slide tool.
Ah.
That's initiated by pressing Control R. Then I choose which axis I want to add to. You see how it kind of updates when I hover around on different parts of the model.
Mhm.
So here we go. I want it on this axis, and when I left click, it commits to that axis, and now I can slide anywhere within it. I'm going to bias this a little bit closer to the front. We can have a longer aft tail and a shorter front, just like my reference. So now I added a cut or another loop, and I can deselect it, and you can see I now have more resolution. It's still basically a cube, but there's more lines to it. I can manipulate these different sections now with different dimensions. So, like I said a moment ago, my plan was to make the front a little smaller. I'm going to scale by pressing S, front end a little smaller on the Y axis.
Okay, I'm tracking.
And scale on the Z axis
to move it together.
And then I can grab with G and press Z to come up on the Z axis. And I can just let it go there. I'm going to do the same thing on the back side. Now, again, I'm just orbiting around with my middle mouse still, clicking on that face, scale it to be small, E and Z, and there we have it. So that's what I'm going to treat as the sort of the bottom of the duck body.
Okay.
I want to give him a little head now. You can see that the mesh is now starting to look very kind of polygonal, and it's looking very boxy.
Yeah, not very smooth like we were wanting, like a duck.
Exactly, not very smooth. Now, at any time, we can just you can just left click on it. See, let me go ahead and delete to clean up my workspace.
What is this?
So that
what is this? Us. What is this see-through vision? What is this sorcery? What are you doing?
This is Alt Z. Alt Z puts us in X-ray, so we can see through everything.
I see.
So we can see through what's inside the toilet and some old geometry that was left from her. I'm gonna clean that. You can toggle it on and off really quickly, like. Okay. So if I press Tab to go into object mode and I select the cube, or I'm going to rename this duck, I can then right-click on the model in the viewport and just click Shade Smooth. That will put a smoothing group on the entire mesh.
The whole thing got smooth.
Can
you do that again? That was super simple. It's like somebody's question got answered in like 2 seconds. Right-click, Shade Smooth, that's it. Done.
Now you see it has these shading artifacts on the edges where it gets really dark.
We
can make that look a little better later when we start adding a little bit more. I'm going to do another bevel to the bottom edge just to show you how that works.
Oh, wow.
Bevel that there
lessons
again.
Here. Bevels to making it curved.
So that starts to look a little better like that. And the more geo we add, the better it's going to look.
Yeah.
We'll leave it like this. But actually, I find it easier to work in a shade flat mode, so we can go back and forth at any time.
Got it.
I find this a little easier to understand my geometry while I'm modeling, and then I can, once I hit a certain point of resolution, then I kind of turn it over.
Got it.
Modeling with the smooth shading. All right, let's get ahead on this duck. What do you say?
I love that. Right now, it looks just like a body. And we're going to make it cute, right? I'm assuming it's going to be cute.
Gonna be the cutest duck.
All right, hey,
Oh my goodness.
bonus question for chat. As you have questions, see if you can put it in the context of a duck, so we can keep going with like the main thing, but then
Oh yeah.
also get questions that you might have still. Because if you don't care about a duck, think of maybe there's a question that could fit into a duck. And more technical questions too. Keep them coming.
So the next step is I want to have a little skinny neck come out of the top of the body here. So to get, but this is too big. If I were to just right click extrude here, which is a good function, that's just a little bit too fat of a duck. Let's Control Z and undo.
Thick duck. Thick duck.
I need to make a little shape out here. So I'm gonna press I for inset. Then basically inset lets me pull in polygons from the widest spot, and to make kind of it'll basically give me another polygon on every single side of this. Inset. I can press GZ to move it up on the Z axis a little bit. All right, we're starting to see a little duck shape start to emerge. You seeing it, folks?
Slowly but surely.
All right, I'm gonna add another loop on this axis now so that I can get a little more roundness to the back of the neck and the front of the chest. Control R again. Loop, cut, and slide. Just click it right there in the middle. And then I'm going to select right here on this polygon and press G to grab it. Oopsie. What did I do? G. And move it back on the X-axis.
You have to know what you're doing. One of us has to know what we're doing.
That's a little whoopsie daisy. Fortunately, we have the ability to undo.
Always undo. And undo's the same, right? It's just Control Z.
Control Z and pretty much everything. Now I got a little round neck shape to play with by adding those extra polygons. Now let's pull the neck up out of the chest here. Now you see how I grab two faces? One left click lets me click a face. But if I hold down the shift button, I can click another face and another face and another face, another face, and so on. So that's how you get more polygons selected at the same time. So I want to have these two selected. Now I'm going to extrude these out. This is a new operation. So we've seen bevel, inset, loop, cut, and slide. Now we're going to do extrude. And that's pretty much all you need to know to do 3D modeling. That's your core tools. And you can do that by extrude faces or extrude faces along normals. This one will make it just come straight out of the face, and extrude faces kind of averages out in a different.
Got it.
It's a very subtle difference how these two work, but if you mess around with it, you'll start to intuit the difference. It doesn't make a great deal of difference at this point. We're just going to do extrude faces. Of course, once again, in the right-click menu, we see the letter E grayed out. So I'm going to press Escape, and I can just press the E key and start extruding.
Got it.
See how as soon as I press E, that blue line appears? That shows the direction that the extrude is going to happen on. And it's
so in this case, it's Z, so straight up.
Yes, exactly. So we'll just drag that up, make a little neck there, and let's do it again. E. Why twice? Why did I do that 2 times? Because I want to make the head bigger and let the neck stay skinny. So I made the neck this size. That's not going to get any bigger. So let's do some cool selection stuff real quick. Let's go to edge mode, grab this edge, press G, Z, and move it up on the Z axis. And just to give us a round top. And let's go back into face mode. And I can hold Alt while I click now. You see if I hold Alt and I click right next to this edge here, it selects all the way around. It gives me a loop selection.
Got it.
Now, it will loop the selection around to the nearest edge that you click on. If I were to be next to this edge and hold Alt and click, it'll select the ones down the loop.
Got it. All right. So
those aren't the faces I want.
This is exceedingly wonderful. The edge loops, the extruding, it's all great. But the question that everyone's really asking for now, as we're developing the glorious cute head for this little duck, is if the duck could also have a top hat.
Of course it can.
So so let's say hypothetically that this brilliant idea of having a duck with a top hat was all you, and you were having this thought in your head, and you're modeling this duck. Does knowing that you want to put a top hat on it change how you model it now? Or do you model the duck head like normal, and then you're like, okay, now I'm going to add a hat? Or like, how do you break up, your ideas as you're making something, or does it matter? Or how do you deal with, iterating and building as things come to you?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I think that the answer is there's not a straight answer, and it depends on what you're doing
That's
and
like
how
every
long you've been
answer.
modeling.
It depends.
Yeah, it depends. I'll say this: you can add a hat. You can always add a new thing onto another thing, and because a hat is another object completely, it will be very safe to just build the duck first and then build a hat later.
Mm-hmm.
But we can also do something like Control R and insert another loop there, and select the ring around, extrude along normals, and I can make a hat like
Oh
right
my
now.
gosh, instant duck hat. That's amazing.
So if I wanted this to be removable from the duck, I would not do that.
Okay.
But if I want it to be part of the duck,
Sure.
I would just do it this way. But I don't know exactly where the duck's eyes and beak are going to go. So I'm going to Control Z and undo that first and get the beak on here
Got
using
it.
a very similar method.
And why would you want to do that? Is it to orient yourself for proportions, so you make sure that it like looks right first, or is there another
Great
reason?
question. Fantastic question.
Wow.
It's going to help me get the proportions figured. Yes, that's exactly right. I'll get the proportions figured out first, and then like I won't be constrained by the hat. If the hat's not there, I can have more freedom with exactly how the hat sits on the head later, after I have a better understanding of what the shape of the head's going to be like, which right now is a little bit up in the air.
Got it. So if you had to summarize the highest level, most universal things, it sounds like this. I'm going to do my best to summarize, and you let me know how close I am. Is extrude is one, G for grab, and then Control R, right, to make a cut, to be able to
cut and slide.
Cut and slide, to be able to add more detail to whatever it is you're cutting.
And then E to extrude.
Oh, E to extrude. Yeah.
E to bevel.
Oh, B to bevel. B to bevel. Yeah, that was somebody's question. Was actually how do I make a round edge? And the answer is B to bevel in like 2 clicks.
Yep. Oh, and for anybody that's tuning in and is new to Blender, all of these operations are detailed on the dev forum in an article called Box Modeling 101. Link in the chat to that. And it goes into great detail on all of this stuff and the exercises to make a treasure chest there. So if you forget something or can't follow along at any point, we can always reference you back to that too.
Amazing.
All right, now I'm going to insert another loop here because I kind of want to give a little curl up to the shape of the beak.
It's kind of cool.
I wouldn't have been able to. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to make that shape if I didn't put that other loop there. So I'll undo that and show you like why I have to do that.
So I was gonna say, like, it's kind of neat that you're able to make something and seemingly anything from like just a handful of operations. And we just mentioned what some of those were, but I'm noticing now like you have dots on the screen, and before they were lines, and then other times you were selecting like whole like portions of it like that. What is that, and how does that matter, and how does that fit into how you make things?
Yeah, good question. So when we select a mesh in object mode, which is reflected up here in the top left of the screen.
And how do you get to object mode?
You can just hit this drop down and change between object and edit. There's other modes, but we're not going to use those ones.
Okay.
We're just going to object to select things and edit to make changes to the mesh. So object lets me choose toilet or choose duck, and I can move the whole duck or move the whole toilet or rotate the whole toilet. Rotate the whole duck, scale the whole duck.
Got it. So object mode is like the higher level, and then the other one you said edit mode is like that's where you actually do stuff.
Yep, and you can press tab to enter edit mode, or you can click the mouse over here, and then you have a choice to operate on vertices, which are the dots, which are the points between all of the edges. Or if we press 2, we can select the edges and edit those, which is basically controlling 2 points. 2 vertices, or I can go into face mode, which is enabled by pressing 3. I can select full faces, or effectively 3 or more vertices at once, and it just is conceptually the same as a polygon, a quad, a face, or a triangle.
And you just you just switch between whichever one meets the need. So like when you were doing the bill a second ago, like the duck like mouth, you were on vertex instead of face. And like what in your mind, like why, when would you do something in vertex mode? When would you do something in, you know, the other one, like face? Like why, how should somebody think about which one to use for what broadly?
I think you just got to do a little bit of a process elimination while you're doing it. And sometimes you want really, really super fine control over just a single point, like on the top of this beak. I don't mind if the sides of the beak are still flat. I just wanted a little bit of curvature kind of on the top of the beak. So all I needed to do was isolate that one vertex and move it down.
Got it.
That. But if I would have tried to do that with the edge, I would have brought the front of the nose down with it and given me the wrong shape.
Okay.
Or the back of the nose and would have given me the wrong shape, or it would have flattened it out in the wrong way. And it would have affected the face, and I didn't want to do that.
Got it. So you just got to kind of think about what you're moving, how it impacts other things.
Right. Exactly right.
Okay. So, okay, great. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent there about, you know, important Blender things. But we have very important businesses like adding a top hat that we still have yet to do.
Yeah, we do. Here, let me real quick just get this little tail fluttered out. This is another extrude. And I'm going to add a little bit more here to get my body a little bit rounder. Okay. You know what? This edge here is looking mighty harsh, isn't it? Let's grab these edges and bevel them.
So you grab the edge, bevel, and it's curved. And then if you wanted to make it smooth, there was like two things that you did. Right click, shade smooth.
Right click, shade smooth.
Just
now
like
that
that.
smooths the entire
Wow.
duck. But over here in the side panel, in the properties panel, we can go down here to the green triangle, object data properties. There's an area here called normals. You could ignore all this other garbage. Doesn't matter. Normals is one we care about. We're going to look at normals. And this is where we can turn on auto smooth, and we can change the angle or the degrees to which something gets smoothed or done. So by default, it's set to 30 degrees. That means any two polygons next to each other that are that have an angle between them that's less than 30 degrees, they'll get smoothed together. We can see that this angle here is more than 30 degrees apart from its neighboring faces. If I turn it up to like 45, you get smoothing between them. So you can control...
You have to know math to do Blender? Is that what I'm saying? That seems like what I have to know. If I would only
just a tiny bit.
Certain
just
things.
a tiny bit.
No.
Just a tiny bit.
No. We became an artist to not do math, and here I am.
Oh, that's not true. Artists are perfectly capable of doing a little bit of math.
You know, it is encouraging to see, you know, actual math being used in an artistic field and to make things cooler and better. So
I do not have math brain. Lots of our engineering and scripting friends have incredible math brain. I have art brain. And I promise this is doable.
Even art brain can do this math.
Yep, I swear.
We can do math.
Let's get our eyeballs on here. Let's make some eyeballs, and then we can move on.
And then the hat.
So one thing I want to show is K. If you press K, that puts you in knife mode.
Ooh.
Brings out a little scalpel. And when you hover over a vertex, you see it kind of snaps to it. You can press click, and I start a cut. And I can end a cut anywhere when it sort of shows me a snap. It's going to snap me to different areas, or I can cut right onto the line here. Or up to here. So forth. And then I can press enter to commit. Now I have a new edge that got cut in there that I have total control over.
So
that's a little different.
I'm a little confused, to be honest. When you did Control R, right, to make to do a whole edge loop all the way across like that, right? But if you want something small, you just do K for knife, and then that's how you get some kind of details that are smaller. Which our next question is actually, it might be related to this. It's, do you have any recommendations for making small details? And it seems like now an eye is a small detail, and you're using a different tool that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, exactly. I use the knife tool to just add very precision cuts, and I'm very specific about where I want them. So this is sort of like a smaller detail, the eyeball, but I don't want it down all the way touching the beak. So I cut a big shape, and I'm going to press I to inset off a little bit. EZ to move it up on the G axis. Sorry, on the Z axis. Then I can press tilde, and this brings up a new menu here. I can choose a top camera, a back camera, a right camera. This gives me orthographic views. I want to see this from the top.
Got it.
Because
so you can just see how much it pops off from the rest of the body. I want to fix up
my topology just a little bit here. I want to get this all kind of lined up a little bit. I go too much further and start making too complicated of shapes. And doing an orthographic camera like that can be really helpful. And one other thing, I don't need this polygon here. I can select it and press Control X, and that dissolves the selection and just makes it go away.
Okay.
Now I can extrude
the eyeball. Oh my gosh, it's creepy. It's terrifying.
Okay, see how this is all the wrong shape.
No.
This is the most terrible eyeball. What I can do is press S to scale.
No, that's making it worse.
It goes all over the place. But if I press 0 while scaling, it scales all of the selection down to 0 on itself. So 0, boom, gone, and press Enter. Now I just have this little kind of pointy shape where they all collapse on a single point, but now I need to make it round. So I grab it and I can bevel these vertices. Shift Control B. Oh, lucky.
Oh.
You need to merge them at center first. Okay. Now there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vertices all on top of each other a moment ago. Here, I'll just grab one and move it. So they're all just sitting on top of each other like that.
Oh, interesting.
Because all I did was scale them to 0 to sit on top of each other. I didn't collapse them into one yet.
Okay. Which is the next step.
Yeah,
and the reason you want to do that is because you don't need them? Like, that's not something you want to do?
Right, exactly. Because if I bevel them out from there, each of them are going to bevel independently, and I want to bevel them as one so I can control that shape more accurately.
Got it. Okay.
So if you go into X-ray mode, you can then select through your mesh completely.
And what's X-ray mode real quick? I know the shortcut's on the screen, but just...
It is Alt-Z.
Alt-Z. Okay.
And
the reason you want to do X-ray mode is because you were saying...
Because then you can select things on the backside of your mesh, or even when vertices are all on top of each other. In this mode, you'll only select one of them.
Got it.
Because one's in front of the other, technically, according to Blender.
I see.
So you want to go into X-ray mode first, and then lasso select. Then it gets them all.
So you get all of them. Got it. Instead of just the one on top.
It'll select through the whole mesh. See how, like, if I select like this. Oh, great, I selected the things that are in the camera view. Nothing behind it. The model blocks that selection. So if I go into X-ray mode and I do the same thing, I selected things all the way through the other side.
Got it. So you do X-ray mode to make sure that you catch everything that's stacked on top of each other, even if it just looks like it's one thing. You go to X-ray mode to make sure you get all of them because they might be duplicated on top.
Exactly, and they will block each other, even though they're tiny, infinitesimally small. Right, so now that I got these all selected here,
SCHLEEMPH, hold on, pause. Yeah. We have 15 minutes, and we haven't gotten to the top hat, and we also have an egg queued. So we gotta we gotta go. We're gonna merge those vertices,
and then we're gonna bevel them out, and we're gonna make a nice round eye. Look at that. It's round now.
Wow. So
it looks weird, but
it looks kind of weird. Should you shade smooth to make it not weird, or is it just how do we make it not look funky?
Well, there's a couple things. This is where modeling gets a little tricky. You just have to combine those simple things that we've already done. So I could bevel a little bit like that. I could use the knife tool to cut another row in.
Oh, so it's more circular.
And then grab that one central vertex, and something weird happened with my mouse. I can just sort of bring it
and then kind of move it in like that.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more of a reasonable shape.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
It's like a photorealistic eye on a super cartoon duck.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get these edges selected, and we can. There's another thing is we can sharp the edges, and then it will not smooth that edge anymore. So define the eyeball differently from the body.
Okay.
That removed the smoothing between them. You do that in edge selection mode. Select an edge and right click and do mark sharp.
Okay. All right, so we
We'll
have
do that.
one very angular, kind of creepy eye. We need another eye, a top hat, and an egg. It's like a
All right.
shopping list.
But just like before, I'm actually putting that top hat above where it went last time.
Mm.
Now,
And you know
you
that
see
because you put the beak and the bill in before.
exactly. Now, you remember earlier when I was showing you a technique where you hold Alt and you select next to an edge and it gives you the whole ring?
Mm-hmm.
See how it didn't complete the ring?
Yeah. Why?
That's because it only works with four-sided polygons. Now,
Ah.
is this a
Okay.
four-sided polygon here?
It looks four to me, but clearly
It's
somehow
not.
not. Why?
Let's go to vertex mode. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, there it is.
Right, so
There
it's
it
a
is.
five-sided polygon. So it stops there, and then you have to manually complete your selection
Got
like
it.
that.
Sure.
Another way to do is I could go back to knife mode and turn that into another quad.
To another four-sided, and then it'll go all the way around.
And it'll go all the way around.
Hey, wow. There you go.
So let's extrude along those. Oops. Nope. Let's use extrude faces. Gosh. You see how it's just going the way that it wants to go? And it's because these faces kind of point upwards a little bit.
Got it.
So what I can do is just work with that and instead use the scale tool by pressing S and scaling them outward.
There we go.
C, Z, just maneuver that around just a little. And I'm just scaling on different axes to kind of get the shape I like best. Then I don't even need to make any more geo. You can just scale this out.
And by geo, you mean geometry. You can just use what's already there.
You don't have to add anything else. And we can get around.
Look at it. It's so cute. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Make it like super long. Make it like giga long. Make it like to space all the way
Here's
up.
a really cool trick. I'm going to actually remove this edge temporarily so that I can add a full loop around here. And I'm going to put it pretty close to the top. S to scale it small. Like, Adam, what are you doing? That makes no sense. Check this out. I can bevel it. And then I get a cool curve.
Wow. Incredible.
One thing that does happen when you bevel like that is just like when we were messing with the eyeball, it makes extra vertices. Watch. Press GZ to move it down. You see how it revealed like a whole new polygon that was just invisible? Yeah. It's because it moves that edge all the way to the edge. So to clean those up, when you get done with an operation like that, always go to vertex mode, press A to select all, then right click to merge vertices by distance. And we can sort anything that's closer together than 0.01 meters.
Sure.
Like basically on top of each other. It'll merge those all together. And there we go.
Wow.
And now there won't be that weird thing.
That weird funkiness. All right, Adam. We're doing good so far. We want
to see a modifier to put symmetry on this so we don't have to model the other side?
That was the question. The question was, do you just copy the eye and put it on the other side? Or do you have to do it all from scratch? But you seem to have an answer for that.
Check it out. Yep, I'll answer it both ways. Yes, you can just copy the eye. We're going to do a selection trick. Let's select the middle one. So I've got this middle vert selected. I can press Control++ on the numpad, and it grows my selection. Plus, it grows and it selects all neighboring vertices. That's a quick way to select a complex shape like that. And then, you see how these are all vertex selections? Oops. And it's just highlighting its neighboring edges and things. If I switch to face mode while I have this selected, it'll just select those faces.
Oh, just the faces and not have to deal with everything else.
Yep, and now I can hold Shift and select this as well. And I can press Shift D.
D is a dog. There it is.
Duplicate. All right, so I could take this and press S and type -1 and scale it on. Oops. Let's do S, Y. So I'm scaling on the Y axis only and type -1. Press Enter. Then I've got a mirrored version of it. I got the duplicated geo. I scaled it negatively. That gives
that's what
me
the negative one is.
That's what I get its opposite from. Yep. I could just line this up and stitch it in by hand. that.
So that's one way.
But that's very tedious. But it is a way.
Okay.
If you can't, it's a way,
So it
and
exists, but you
there's
might
nothing
not
wrong with it.
want to
It's
do
totally fine, but it's not as easy. I'm going to press delete to delete those faces. And whenever you press delete, it brings up this dialog. You can delete just the vertices, just the edges. I'm almost always wanting to delete faces.
Mm-hmm.
Recommend faces. And that just gets rid of it. Or I can press tab to get out of object mode. And I can go over to this little wrench here, which is the modifier properties panel. And I can click add modifier, which gives you a big old list. You don't need to worry about
Kind of
any of
overwhelming.
these.
Not gonna lie.
Yep. Worry about those some other day. Not a big deal. You're hardly ever going to use them. Or you'll start using more of them over time. But I'd say I use maybe 15% of these, and I've been doing this for 16 years.
Wow. Good
So
to know.
Mirror.
Mirrors.
Mirror gives us a mirror. Just going to mirror the model. And you can choose which axis. We're going to want to mirror on the y-axis. If you ever forget which axis is which, it's always nice to look at this little widget in the top right-hand corner.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to mirror it, kind of left to right. I can just look up here and see which one of these is going left and right, and that's the green one, and that's y-axis. Turn off x-axis here, which is on by default. And we'll choose y, and you can choose to bisect, which means it'll split the model down the middle. Without this, it just duplicates the model and flips it over. You actually want to cut it down its center and mirror the other side, so it's identical and stitched together. So I pressed bisect, and immediately the eyeball disappeared. So that must mean I need to flip the mirror. Boom. Other way. And we can toggle that back and forth. You can see this is the right side, this is the left side, right, left, right. So there we have it. And then when we get the setting we like, we can click apply. There's just a little drop down arrow, and you apply the modifier. It disappears from the stack, and your mesh now has those properties forever. Look at that ducky. Look at the big old head.
That's pretty cute. Not gonna lie. I love it. So the last question is the egg. They want to make an egg for our wonderful duck with his wonderful top hat.
So easy. Let's do it.
Let's see. Actually, hold on. SCHLEEMPH, this is a question for you. Do you think you can, when you make the egg, you look at this duck in the top hat and you're like, wow, incredible, goals. Like that's everything I want to be as an artist. So, but yet you use like the same 4, 5, 6 moves over and over and over and over again. Do you think that you can make the egg, which is pretty simple, right? And most people might be less intimidated by like, oh, I can make an egg in Blender. Like, sure.
Yeah.
Do you think that you can make the egg, but then annotate each step that you also use to make the duck, just to show the contrast of like, hey, this looks really simple and you can make an egg, but if you do this on repeat with some design, you can also make something more complex like a duck?
Sure. Okay. Yes, let's go. All right, the first thing we'll do is press Shift-A to add a new mesh. This brings up the Add menu. We're going to start with a sphere. Let's do a UV sphere. And as you can see, it puts it down here, and it's outlined, and it's underneath the toilet. And it starts off with 32 segments and 16 rings in a radius of 1 meter. That's just, there we are. You can see it down there. You can change these properties to add more or less.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can start with like 16 by 8, so it's a little more reasonably low poly.
Okay.
Remember, we
little
want to keep
bit
our
easier
polygons
to deal with, so to speak.
Exactly. And then let's just move it out of the way. Now we can look at it. I would say next, let's go ahead and shade smooth.
Shade smooth. That was the first one of the first questions we had. Easy, done. 2 clicks.
All right, and then let's go into an orthographic camera. It's Alt-Z to see it
for
in
the X-ray, also that we used.
And we want to go into edit mode and press 1 to go into vertex selection mode. And I'm going to select the top half of these just by selecting through the whole object. And because I'm in X-ray mode,
yeah.
I get both sides. So I will press S to scale. I don't want to scale it on every axis. I just want to make this taller. Let's do SZ. I'm going to make that tall. And then I'm going to press G and Z and drag those vertices up and round out my egg. There we go. You got an egg.
There's an egg.
But now that's a really simple one. Let's make a cracked egg so we can talk about maybe some more aspects of modeling.
Perfect.
to deliver on the
Yeah,
exercise.
because you can't really extrude from here like it's done. So if you wanted to show extruding, which you've done a fair bit of, or cutting,
Yeah.
you'd probably have to make this a little more complex.
Yeah, let's make this a plastic egg.
Okay.
With an inside.
Ooh.
So,
Ooh.
just
Egg,
like last
and
time.
an egg.
An egg and an egg, boy. Right, let's press Control R to add another loop.
Okay.
And
we do loops to add more detail.
Exactly. Now we have an opportunity here to add more resolution. See, this is a really long straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Opportunity now to just scale it up a little bit more.
Press S and just move it out.
Mm-hmm. Now let's also go in here, and so we have vertex selected. We can just press 2 and give us the edges. Let's bevel those edges. It's a little bit of a split, and this is where we're going to cut the egg. Don't need 7 edges. We only need 1. There we go. Now we'll do X-ray again. We'll press 3 to go into face selection. Let's select that whole row.
Man, that's so clutch to just be able to look at one side but use X-ray to get the whole thing around instead of having to select every single one all the way around manually.
Very convenient. Right, now let's press Control L.
What does that do?
Select linked all. Select all linked faces, basically based on their seams. There are no seams here, so it goes all the way to the seam where the mesh ends.
So it's how to select like a portion of what you've made.
Exactly, and you can select things by whether it's sharp or not, by UV islands, normals, or materials. We're not doing that today. We're just going to select to the seam, and it'll flood fill the selection all the way until the mesh ends, which in this case is right along where we cut it.
Got it. All right, SCHLEEMPH, pause for 1 second. I need to address the crowd. Hello, crowd.
Indeed.
Hello, chat. We are currently like 2 minutes from the end of our scheduled programming. We're not with Inspire, which means you're not going to get any goodies from us outside of knowledge. You'll get knowledge, which hopefully you've already had. So there are other Inspire streams that are going on that you should attend. We're going to be wrapping up here soon. We're going to be going a little bit over. But I just want to let you know that if you were waiting for the next Inspire event, the time to leave our wonderful stream and see their wonderful stream is now. So that's it.
Don't leave SCHLEEMPH.
Hey, they have to. Inspire is good. They can leave. They can watch the VOD afterwards. All good.
I will be so jealous.
That's okay. It's okay. Anyway, wrap it up. We gotta go. We're running a little over.
Thanks for stopping in, y'all. Okay, let's grab this with G. Move it out of the way. Remember, you can hold middle mouse, use an axis. Move it out of the way. Go back to edge selection mode and press Alt-Shift. Select. Click one edge and select that whole edge. And let's extrude it inward. We'll extrude a little bit. Right-click so it goes nowhere and press S to scale that extruded edge. Then I can press E to extrude again. And again, you see how it just goes any old way? I'm going to lock this to the Z axis by pressing Z. All right, and E again, E again, then S to scale it in. And I'm basically just kind of building out the interior of it.
Got
one
it.
row at a time.
You're
E,
basically making a little wall
easy.
in between this middle section and the outside section.
Easy, exactly. E, S, 0, enter, 1. Go back to vertex selection mode. And remember, I had all those edges in there selected.
They're
when
still
I
there.
convert that
They're
to vertices, this is selecting all of those vertices. I don't even have to go to X-ray mode. And I can merge at center. They become one vertex. That's the bottom half of the egg. You could even repeat the process with the top half. Pressing 3, selecting a face, Control L to get all of those faces.
Yep.
If I press P, I get to separate the selection.
To make it like its own item off to the side.
Exactly. Now it's its own mesh over here. I can do unique things with this. And an even faster way to do it, we just did by hand here, except with the top half, is do another modifier. Just click Add Modifier again over here on the right side panel, in the Properties panel. Remember, this is Modifiers. And these are on the little wrench. And we can go to Solidify. And then we just mess with the thickness and choose how thick we want it. And then apply.
There you go.
Perfect.
And there's our egg. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for excusing the scuff. We're still kind of figuring it out. So we appreciate you dealing with our well intentions here. The next ones will be more polished, we promise. It'll be great. In the meantime, though, something we wanted to tell you is that we have a lot more resources outside of streams that are really, really cool that you can watch. We have a lot more other things that you can do, like these tutorials that we've made. There's some about scripting. They have code samples. We also have AI, which is amazing, and you can use it to look up more specific questions that you have. You can even use it in Studio. And then, of course, as most of you know, we also have Dev Forum. So between those things, and the links will all be underneath this video where it's embedded, you'll have access to the other tutorials that are written, some with videos, some with not, and then all the other tools available to help you start making the things that you see in your head. We'll have more streams coming your way, and continue to let us know what kind of topics you would like to see and what types of things that you're interested in. We're really excited to be making more of these for you and hope that you get things out of it. SCHLEEMPH, anything to say before we wrap here? Excellent. Okay. All right. Thanks.